Hey guys, today we're examining the more interesting details that you may have missed from My Hero Academia chapter 286. As usual, the official translations have clarified a few things, especially the words of Nana Shimura during that final panel, but we'll get to that later. Just before we jump into it, I have some exciting news, which is that I now have a Twitch account, and every Sunday at midday Eastern Time, I'll be doing a live analysis to the new chapters. The first stream will be this Sunday, and we'll be discussing My Hero chapter 287 and Black Clover chapter 267. Also, I will be on camera because it's Twitch, so if you haven't seen my face yet, then that will be a good time. If that sounds good, then I'd love if you pause this video for 1 second and click the link in my description to follow me on Twitch. But with that said, I hope to see you there on Sunday, and yeah, let's just get into this video. To start things off, the name of this chapter is The Ones Within Us, which is a reference to both All For One inhabiting Shigaraki's body and the Vestiges of One For All inhabiting Deku's quirk. This title is very different from the unofficial fan translations, which called it One Among Us, which originally had me thinking that Horikoshi was playing a certain game. An interesting thing to note is that after All For One took over Shigaraki's body in the last chapter, we now see Shigi fighting back as the apprentice and master battle each other for control. That's why in this panel we can see his head shaking as Shigi tells him to cut it out. Despite this though, AFO does retain control and he removes the tentacles from forced quirk activation. He removes them from Bakugo's body. In the words of AFO, during the battle today there's been a lot of blood spilled for no reason, but remember, it was only last chapter that he truly tried to take over Shigaraki's body. So what this means is that he's been watching since the very beginning and he's literally just been a bystander and is now only choosing to step in because he felt that Shigaraki was going to lose. We always knew that the will of All For One was inside Shigaraki, but we didn't actually think it was really All For One himself just watching the whole fight take place. But this right here is basically a confirmation. It does make me wonder though, what exactly is happening to AFO's body that's in Tartarus right now? Like, is that body still active? Are there two AFOs right now? Or is that body like just unconscious right now and he's in Shigaraki's body? It's kind of confusing how this works, but I guess we'll find out. Following this, Deku goes berserk yet again, and I gotta say I'm consistently impressed by Horikoshi's range. Like, the range of angry Deku faces, it's so varied, like I love it. From Midoriya's perspective, Shigaraki has potentially killed Gran Torino, Bakugo, and Aizawa. Blood loss is a real thing. I mean, Aizawa's lost his leg, Bakugo's been stabbed through the stomach and shoulder, and obviously Gran Torino got impaled. So in real life, there's a high chance of death for all three of them. But because this is a shonen manga, I reckon only maximum one of them is going to die, and it's going to be Gran Torino. At present though, Deku doesn't actually know he's in a manga, and so, from his point of view, they could all die. And we get this beautiful spread of him just going crazy, biting in to the force quirk activation tentacles and destroying it. His right hand snaps it like it's nothing, and his left side looks like he's punching the force quirk activation head on. I mean, ridiculous stuff. What was especially cool about this moment was we get a flashback to the words of Lariat, who was the 5th user of One For All. Way back in the joint training arc, Lariat said to Deku that if he uses the power out of anger, it will start working for him a lot better. He was referring to Black Whip when he said that, and we see in one of the later panels that Deku has All For One totally surrounded with Black Whip. Before we get that far ahead though, a large crack appears across Shigaraki's face out of nowhere. Deku hasn't done anything to cause this specific crack, and remember, Shigaraki's body is currently regenerating, so it's kind of weird that an injury would suddenly appear. This is then followed up by an image of All For One smiling behind the crack, and in my opinion, this is one of the best pieces of art we've ever seen in My Hero Academia. As I said in my spoiler review for this chapter, AFO appearing is more of a metaphor to signify that he's now in control, because, like I said, he's not going to burst out of Shigaraki. This is all just, to show you that he's in the driver's seat. One quick side note, we see that bits of skin, they're starting to break off Shigaraki's face, which further proves that right now, Shigi's body is the crustiest it has ever been, and that is some achievement. Moving on, we see Gigantomachia on an absolute rampage, just tearing up a city, and the big guy notes how he can smell 2 distinct scents. one of them being Shigaraki and the other one being All For One. I found this to be strange because it means that All For One's mind control over Shigaraki it has a physical side effect as well. Otherwise Makia would never be able to smell him. If I had to speculate, this could be foreshadowing that All For One can literally swap bodies with Shigaraki. And this is my quick theory here. Shigaraki's body will transform and kind of look like what All For One used to look like back in his younger days. We then get a look at the evacuation happening in Jakku, and essentially what's going on is that the heroes and police are now helping citizens to evacuate before Makia arrives. And someone, it's not clear who says this, but someone correctly points out that the heroes at the battlefield, like Endeavor and Deku, they don't know that Gigantomachia is coming. Like, no one's told them because Shigaraki destroyed the communications. This means that in the coming chapters, more heroes should arrive to the main battlefield to tell Deku and the gang of Makia's impending arrival. I definitely think, at the least, Ochako will be there because not only is the entire next page dedicated to her thoughts, but in a previous chapter, she literally just said like she wants to go back and help. Similar to last week, the two most interesting things about this chapter are located in its final pages. Number one is All For One stealing One For All, which is a big deal, and number two is the reappearance of Nana Shimura. To start with the first point, AFO sticks his hand directly in front of Deku's face, and we can see that the hole in his hand does actually begin to suck out One For All. This hole is specifically for taking quirks, and we see in the next panel, these lines, they indicate the transfer is happening. But, that said, I don't think this is the end of it. We'll have to see, but as many of you know, I'm not against the idea of One For All being taken. In fact, one of my most popular theories, one of the main points of that was One For All is going to be taken. However, if it is stolen, then I don't think this is the moment for it to happen. For the sake of the plot, if it happened now, the heroes are actually done for, because everyone is tired, everyone's beaten up. So if they get All For One right now, how do the heroes make it out alive? They don't make it out alive. So yeah, I think for plot's sake, it's not going to happen right now, but it could happen in the future. Whilst this transfer of One For All is seemingly happening, Deku is then transported to the Vestige World. And when we compare him now to the first time he entered this world, there is a big difference. As I theorized in my spoiler review, the more percentage of One For All that he unlocks, the more that we're able to see him in this world. Alternatively, it could mean that the more quirks he unlocks, the more we see him. Maybe that one as well. Midoriya sees All For One and Shigaraki enter the Vestige World of One For All. And an interesting thing to notice is that before they emerge, the ground looks pretty normal, right? But after they come out, we see all the lines that usually happen when Shigaraki activates his decay quirk. These lines are also very similar to when All For One was stealing One For All a second ago, so based on whichever interpretation you prefer, these lines mean that Shigaraki is about to destroy the Vestige World, or he's about to take it over as the new holder of One For All. Only time will tell, but just know that these lines are never a good thing. Shiggy tells his master to stay back and that, he should be the one running the show, he's the successor, but All For One grabs him gently and says that he had to help because if he didn't, Shigaraki would have been killed by Endeavor's flames. And this is a fair point because had All For One not activated Force Quirk activation, he probably would have been burnt up completely. From this text, it seems like All For One is genuinely trying to help Shigaraki more than he's trying to betray him. But of course, betrayal is still on the cards. Deku collapses to the ground, and it's at this point that we get to see Nana Shimura. She tells Midoriya that he can't move in this world yet. And the fact that she says yet means there's something Deku can do in the future that will allow him to move around in this world. I highly doubt she's referring to his death at this point, he's only a teenager, so I think she means that there's something that's going to happen that will allow him to move around. She tells Midoriya, let us handle this, which means that she's not going to be fighting alone. At a minimum, I think, Nana Shimura, Lariat, and All For One's brother will try and stop All For One and Shigaraki from taking the quirk. It's also possible that the fourth user will join in because he's had some spotlight in recent chapters with Bakugo questioning what All Might's hiding about him. So I think that could come into play as well. From what I'm seeing right now, it seems that in the next chapter or the next few chapters, the previous users of One For All that I just mentioned will try and defeat All For One and Shigaraki inside this Vestige World, and that will stop them from taking One For All. Because, I mean, like I said, the transfer looked like it was underway, so I guess the only way to stop it is to defeat them within One For All, I guess? Nana Shimura places her hand on the back of Deku's head, which is exactly what she did to Shigaraki when he was getting All For One. So yeah, that's an interesting parallel, but I guess unlike Shigaraki, Deku's actually going to listen to what she has to say. And yeah guys, for chapter 286, that was everything I had. Be sure to follow me on Twitch for a live reaction to the official release of chapter 287. It's happening this Sunday at 12 PM Eastern Standard Time. And until the next video, peace out.